We're discussing here Open RAN value chain and vendor landscape, and I'd say this is one of the not so technical aspect of Open RAN, but for understanding on what's out there, no? What vendors are doing and what segments, no? Are they concentrating on, as what Ms. Anupa mentioned a while ago, no? NVIDIA is into Open RAN, and a lot of the components of Open RAN NVIDIA is trying to get into. So this is no, as a result of change, no, from closed proprietary solutions in the traditional RAN network. Open RAN wants to do a network architecture paradigm shift, where the innovation would be inevitable, and a large and varied number of future use cases would now be possible. And because in the previous RAN environment, where it's a single vendor, you cannot just modify anything. You would need the vendor's assistance, and most likely not all the features that you want would be implementable on certain set of equipment. So if you do see, let's say, another telco innovating with a different vendor on in another country, perhaps, and you want that same feature, now, and maybe your current vendor will not be able to support it because of certain limitations, or maybe the R&D team is it's not part of their roadmap yet, or it's gonna be in their roadmap, but in 3 to 5 years down the line, but you need it now. So you don't have a choice but to wait it out, because the other option is to create and replace your RAN deployment, which for the most part is not really possible due to cost and deployment timeline also. So, what are the vendors, no, that carries OpenRAN technology are currently into? And this would give us we'll be discussing a current study from the European Union on how they see themselves, no, in comparison with other regions, no, in deploying Open RAN. So we'll discuss value chain categories, findings from recent studies, mainly European, future estimates, no, of revenue in Open RAN, and current vendor distribution and Open RAN adoption. So value chain, we found this definition. It's basically the change again from proprietary solutions to Open RAN. Hopes, no, that, and think it's right smack in the middle, that it will really drive innovation, because even smaller companies who wants a share of the pie, in radio access network, does not need to develop end-to-end solutions, no, which tends to be very expensive, and they'll need a lot of expertise. Now they could just concentrate on specific components that they are very good at, and well, basically innovate from that space, no? And hoping to be able to contribute to the ecosystem, and of course grow their revenue at some point. We found this definition from NetSuite, no, on it's a common issue where supply chain is um, mistaken, no, as value chain. But for starters, a supply chain is basically the movement of raw resource for building products and services, no, and sending it, distributing it to the customers. Supply chain mainly consists, no, of operational process, and if you focus on efficiency of the logistics and production. And the driver here, of course, is the business. No, you want it efficient. You want it streamlined to basically reduce the cost and ensure that there's a if there's less process, less steps in the process, there's a lesser chance of having some issues, no, or inducing errors in the system. Now, in contrast, value chain starts with customer value creation, and you want to basically you're seeking, to imbue products and services with these values as it moves along the supply chain. And value chain basically are business management process that involves market research, production, innovation activities, and basically trying to figure out, no, what does the customer wants, no, and needs, no, and if you're able to actually predict that, no, and deliver it, no, even before the customer asks for it, no, then you'll be first in the market, and you'll have a first mover advantage. So there are a lot of value chain categories in Open RAN, and we could start here, no, with semiconductors. No? So I think NVIDIA is well into this space. No? It's the chips and related components. where this category encompass the creation and production of chipsets and related radio components necessary for constructing Open RAN elements. This includes radio units, antennas, and distributed and centralized units. So, but a lot of this is very special. A lot of these chips are very specialized. So even for any chip companies, no, if they are not into RF, well, they could maybe start innovating and streamlining production for, let's say, a centralized server units, no? Or maybe they are into active antenna production, no? With some of the chips and chipsets there, no? So they might concentrate there and innovate, no, on that space. Another is RAN hardware. So but this is a decoupled really from the semiconductors, no? But this one involves the creation and production of hardware components, no? Includes radio units, antennas, distributed server units, and small cell devices. So again, some difference here is if you think of computers, semiconductors would be the production of the CPU. RAN hardware would be all the other components, no, to make this system work. Next, of course, we have the RAN software. This category compromises RAN function, no? Where you used to be integrated with the hardware, no? But now you could autonomously, operate this on cloud-based hardware. You could also have pieces of software known as virtualized network functions or containerized network functions, no? And this includes, in this category are new platforms, designed for automating, managing, and orchestrating RAN components. Now, in the traditional RAN, typically you would buy the semiconductor, the hardware, and the software from a single vendor, and sometimes including the antennas too. So, end to end, it's single vendor. And it has its advantages, means you only have to talk, to one vendor, and they likely, hopefully, have done end-to-end testing, and if it's all their components, you shouldn't have any much problem, no, in deploying it. Now, the problem with um, this type of approach, in Open RAN, it's the cons would be you now have to talk to multiple vendors, because if you're mixing and matching different products from different vendors, uh, well, officially they should comply to Open RAN interoperability. So ideally they should be able to talk to each other. But there is a service component in Open RAN value chain where maybe you could talk to an SI and they would have a recommendation on what product they have managed before or deployed in other telcos, so that they could recommend that this one works. So or this combination works. And a huge component of Open RAN is the push to cloudify most of what you can. Of course, you cannot cloudify antennas, no, but the operations, the management, the machine learning involves in tweaking the RF could be run in the cloud. And this category basically could concentrates on infrastructure. And there are components here where you could run, no, edge and core data centers in the cloud. No? And you basically are running Open RAN software, and you could basically orchestrate, no, entire RAN network through the cloud environment. So services now, while a lot of this would likely fall, no, on system integrations, with Open RAN just basically starting up, no, there's a lot of testing also involved, no, is involved in services. Meaning, if you want to test if your product would perform, no, and operate well in Open RAN environment, you might need, no, some testing. If you don't have all the test equipments, then you could go to a service, no, or integration testing, where they would have most of the components or all the components of Open RAN, and they would replace uh, a portion of it with your technology, and check if it's working well, if it's performing well, if there are any issues, no, or even environmental conditions, no, on especially for outdoor equipments like antennas and radio units. They could test that, no, for you. And this is actually going to be a huge part of a huge chunk, no, of Open RAN value chain, as you'll see later in the findings and future estimates. And lastly, we have development. So this one, of course, you could start developing for Open RAN. You don't necessarily need to have no, all the equipments to do R&D, for Open RAN. But what it does now is with a lot of different vendors, now you could mix and match, and they would have smaller scale versions of their products. You could deploy in a small laboratory, or some of those components could also be deployed in an emulator framework, no? And you could start experimenting and developing technologies for Open RAN with a very lean setup, no? Not unlike before that, again, you need these big boxes from a single vendor, no? And even if you develop a technology for a specific RAN deployment, that might not be deployable, no? On RAN deployments from a different vendor, no? You would likely need to change a lot of it, no? But the concept is there, no? But now with this uh, type of multi-vendor approach, again, you could concentrate your resource on specific technology that you are good at, no? Or specific technology that you want to improve on or invent on. And there's also a lot of open source collaborations and labs, no, that exchange and verify this technology. So you could send your product to a specific vendor, let's say if NVIDIA has the interoperability lab, and you're developing, let's say, a machine learning component, no, for radio frequency allocation and optimization. You could send it to their lab and have it test, no, with their equipment. No? And if it works, no, you want vendor B, vendor C verification, you might be able to send your product and test equipment, no, to, let's say, NEC or Rakuten, since they have this interoperability lab, and you could have them test it out. No? And again, in testing, working is a different m- telemetry, no, from performance. No? It might be working, but it might not be up to what component or the throughput that you are expecting might not really uh, be at par, no, with the current RAN deployments. No? So when we did our study tour in Japan, no, across this multiple RAN vendors, Open RAN vendors, what they were checking, I mean, they have made it work, no? They have an operational Open RAN test deployment. I think there are some production deployments. One of their core tests, no, is throughput, no, and performance. No? If they could link up how many number of end user devices, if they could transfer data, no, with at par, no, with traditional RAN networks. Those are the tests that they are performing because they already have been able to make it work. So that's part of the development of uh, category in Open RAN value chain. So we have here a study, no, from the European Union, and they were trying to figure out, no, where are they in Open RAN, and what um, companies na that is European associated or established, and how do they compare with other regions. No? So semiconductors, this caters again for a range, no, of RAN hardware elements. You got general purpose processors, specialized silicon chipsets, RF, foundry, and in traditional RAN, these are designed, no, for one vendor only. Okay, and in Open RAN, chip providers can support, no, equipment from many vendors. So this basically is the open part of Open RAN. You could mix and match, and it's going to be interoperable if they are complying with Open RAN standards. If not, of course, they will not be stamped with the Open RAN seal of approval. Okay, so for Europe, they were able to determine, that they have a lot of players in GPPs, specialized silicon chipset, RF, and foundry. No? And not surprising, one of the um, in-demand vendors for general purpose processor right now is ARM. No? So it's basically competing, no, with Intel and AMD. But Intel and AMD is, of course, tagged here as non-European, but ARM is in a major vendor in Open RAN, no? But under GPP. Um, you got NXP, you got ST Micro here. For specialized silicon chipset, we have Broadcom, Intel, Marvell, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and Xilinx. For RF, well, of course, there is Qualcomm and Xilinx for non-European players. Um, for Foundry, there's Intel, Samsung, and TSMC. Okay, so this graph and categorization, you'll see at least for this segment on how Europe is trying to map out where they are strong and where they're weak. No? So that means if you could see no, the status, no? Red would mean they're weak. Yellow means they are competing. But if you see green, no, then that means Europe is a major, basically they are leading that aspect. Check it out. So next we have this discussion that Europe has some providers no, and promising startups. That study was actually a year old, no? So we yet to see an updated one, and if they release a new one, I would like to compare no, how they were when they were starting to predict Open RAN involvement, European Open RAN involvement to the current state. Additionally, Europe has a group of specialist semiconductor vendors no, that are working in Open RAN in areas such as RF, processor optimization, and support no? Advanced functionality and very low latency since well, you got a huge component of Open RAN like the near real-time intelligent controller. So you you um, you need very fast, very low latency chips no? For that to work properly as intended. Okay. Now for the RAN hardware, this one um, basically, of course, you're trying to support Open RAN with hardware components that's specifically designed for it. Or you could basically adopt no, some products and have it support no Open RAN interfaces, which basically enables you know, to work with multiple RAN hardware elements. Some traditional no, single proprietor RAN deployments are trying to open up their products also to be compatible with Open RAN because if not, they're gonna miss out no, in Open RAN deployments in the near future. No? Because if lots of telcos would be demanding Open RAN compatible equipment, then and they are still producing uh, a big block of single vendor deployment, then the chances of them getting or even a component of it, no, because if it's not Open RAN compliant, then telcos will not be able to operate that in their Open RAN deployment. So even traditional vendors are being pushed no, to support Open RAN and break out their components no, to be reprogrammed and be tweaked to support no, Open RAN interfaces. So in RAN hardware, no, we got radio units will increasingly be built no, to common specifications and common interfaces. There would be many Open RAN hardware providers that will be targeting small cells as first step because that's easy to build. No? It's you don't have the footprint is small, the technology and the production line to do it is actually small, and this actually becomes more enticing no, to vendors no, on how um, if they're thinking no, of doing their first step into Open RAN or getting their feet wet into those products. No? And when mapping mapping their um, space no, on where they are here in RAN hardware, uh, they are somehow competing no, in radio units and active antenna. They have a lot of vendors that um, produces no, Open RAN antennas here. Um, but what we're more familiar with, I think that's what they were trying to say here is uh, there is a large competition from outside Europe for radio unit no, and active antenna deployment. For distributed unit, Europe says they are red. No? They don't actually have any organization at the time of the study that is concentrating on distributed unit. On small cells, they have one, Benetel. But outside European, you have Airspan, IP, that says, and Mavenir. Uh, In full RAN deployment, well, of course, there's Nokia, no, Finnish company that is doing full RAN. I mean, all elements they would have it. Well, it's Nokia. So for RAN software, sorry, for radio unit, no, this includes active antenna in the value chain. Europe, no, has the largest and most diverse base of vendors. As you see a while ago, no? So this provides potential to make Europe, no, the center of excellence for technology. But of course, other regions are trying to compete with this space too. Because of especially for 5G and eventually 6G, the range is starting to be smaller, no, for transmission for high-speed network. So they would need to deploy a lot of these radio units in clustered, no, and in close enough space. So this would be a big potential revenue for any vendors who would want to concentrate on radio unit deployment. Now, if you're the best in the market, you got the best price. Imagine the amount of 5G and 6G base station that you could deploy and maintain for the foreseeable future, and then that's where revenue comes in. Hence, they are interested in radio units. For RAN software, this is again disaggregated from hardware. This includes basebands, components for distributed and centralized units to manage, no, RAN signaling and control. This also includes software, no, for the RAN intelligent controller to optimize radio, no, to suit local conditions and changes in the environment. Like maybe there is we could maybe the RAN could detect that there's a large number of end user devices on a certain location, and they could maybe beam the antennas to service that area more than maybe, let's say, on the other side of the region, they might be less people, no, or end user devices there, no? So they might be able to redirect uh RF, no, to locations where they need to service a lot more people, or some instances where, let's say, a tower, no, goes down, other antennas within the range, no, might reconfigure themselves to be able to service, no, use end user devices on being serviced by the tower that went down in a degraded fashion, of course, but they would still be connected, no? And that's better than having no connection at all. Okay. Now, then service management and orchestration automates many of these RAN process. No? And if you do have machine learning and big data analytics, no, you most likely won't actually need an individual to detect that and then reconfigure your radio units. No? It's most likely going to be done automatically. Uh, and when Europe map, no, their companies now that plays in this space, they are in yellow. So they are competing. They have a good number of organizations in RAN software. You got Capgemini, Nokia, and Ericsson. But there are still, no, a lot of non-European players, no, that is the dwelling into this space, no, which is a competitor for Europe, no, but they have the biggest so far, no, because you got of course the Nokia, Ericssons, and Capgemini's here. But there are interesting players on non-European entities in RAN software because well, with software, I would say the barrier to entry is a bit more easy, no, than compared to the hardware and the semiconductors. So from the recent studies, early trials and deployments have been mainly undertaken by US companies. Got example like Altostar, Mavenir, and Parallel Wireless. Development of Open RAN intelligent controllers has been driven by US and Japanese companies, so like NEC and Amdocs. But there is limited activity in Europe with Nokia, Ericsson, and Capgemini developing some of the first implementations in ORAN. So um, yeah, again, interesting to see what they are up to, no? If they would have a recent study and compare it with the previous one. In the cloud, this is interesting. Um, basically, again, there is a push for cloudification of most components in Open RAN to minimize footprint in the telcos data center. No? But I think for the Philippines, in general, though, we do have a problem with cloud. While we could connect to the cloud, we don't have a data center for, let's say, Azure or AWS that is hosted locally. There are, I don't see if the plans would materialize now, but some are saying that some of these cloud vendors who are planning to establish a data center here in the Philippines. But until they do a groundbreaking and have it operational, I yet to see that. We do have direct fiber connections to some of these cloud vendors that you could subscribe to, but that tends to be very expensive. Okay, and that uh, had no when figuring out Open RAN from the Philippines perspective, especially cloudification, it would work mostly, but you would have latency issues. No? If your system is sensitive to latencies, then you might be able to deploy still most of your components in the cloud, but you most likely would need some components hosted within the local data centers here for mitigating latency issues. Okay. So for OpenRAN, there is a recommendation that CU and DU, no, you could run it on a public or third-party cloud provider rather than own telco's cloud. Again, there is a push for cloudification in any Open RAN component that you could run in the cloud. Now, for Europe, mapping them out, no, of course, they just have very few space or companies that dives into this space where, let's say for cloud software, no, you got Canonical and SUSE, that's basically Linux distributions. Um, For third-party cloud, you have OVH Cloud, which I haven't used. But if you check out non-European players in the cloud environment, of course, you got for the hardware, you got the Dell, HP, Samsung, Lenovo. For cloud software, virtualization, you got VMware, Red Hat, Google, and Microsoft. But for third-party cloud or public cloud, of course, most of these are non-European. I got AWS, Microsoft, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle, even Alibaba is playing in this space. So you could see the status for Europe, at least at the time that they conducted studies, they have some fighting chance now in the cloud software. But on the cloud hardware and the public or third-party cloud, they practically have none. Which will basically states that well, this is a market space mainly played upon by the US companies because well they have the biggest cloud providers no? And they Europe at least no, is trying to position themselves into maybe they could get some market share there but I think the study would indicate no, where they are weak at where they are good at and their policymakers would now decide no, do they put resource to startup companies or playing into space where they were weak like, or maybe just boost the current companies now that has been competing and put resources there now and maybe they could be a major player too at some time in the future in Open RAN. So again, they are trying to Europe specifically, no, they are trying to study no, which specific RAN enhancement no, that they could improve on or uh, seed no, other organizations no, to be able to get a market share for Opera because they know that well everyone knows that connectivity is key no, for at this day and age no? You have to be connected you have to be able to transmit and receive data at a good amount of speed no and connectivity will have to most likely be running through telco. Next we have services. So this one you want to it plays a significant role in Open RAN value chain no? And a large component of services is testing for integration across multiple vendor solution. There's also, of course, deployment. No? But for the testing side, especially when right now, no, Open RAN is trying to integrate various products and trying to do deployment on test scenarios. Well, there are some telcos that have been using Open RAN already. Um, Not entirely, no, but some segments of it. Then they're trying to get their feet wet in Open RAN. So deployment would also be part of the services, no, and operations too. Okay, so important factor is to ensure that software and the hardware from various suppliers would work optimally uh, together in is testing for performance and interoperability. So again, two major services, no, tests are being done by service companies for integration testing. One is interoperability. Does it actually talk to various components in an Open RAN deployment? Um, and is it performing as intended? The throughput, the latency. Because you could have a product that is interoperable, but it's gonna be very slow. If you, let's say an organization created a specific product or a specific module, no, for Open RAN, and it does integrates well with their API and its response, no? But the moment you try to connect, let's say, 1,000 end user equipment passing through their box, and it's not able to handle it well, their performance might drop. Or it might have good bandwidth, but latency might have been an issue, no? Because if it's not optimized, no, for fast communications, fast throughput, then it could be interoperable, but it might not be actually useful in actual deployment. So these are the two things that services organizations, especially for integration testing, is working on. Now, for Europe, now they have good status here. For system integration, well, they have Capgemini, Atos, Reply, and CTCO. But there are also, of course, big non-European players like Accenture, NEC, IBM, HP, Tech Mahindra, and TCS here on this space. Now, that is for the SI. For the testing, they also have a lot, no, of organizations in Europe. You got Road and Schwarz, Spirent, ANTC, SRS. But for non-European players, they have Keysight and Viavi, which is actually, I would say, Viavi is one of the biggest interoperability testing and emulation environment vendor, no, for Open RAN. They even have an end-to-end suite, no, that you could run an Open RAN on their system, and then you could just replace the specific components and or simulate specific components in software, no, to check if your idea or concept would actually work even before designing the hardware. Yeah. For enterprise services, we still have Nokia, Cellnex, and others now for Europe, but they are competing with big players like Google, Microsoft, and Cisco for enterprise services here. And I think this would go in operations and management the moment that OpenRAN is deployed. So NEC in our region, no, in the world actually, is currently one of the most successful SI in Open RAN. Capgemini is an active SI and software developer in Open RAN. One of the most leading, no, Open RAN vendor neutral integrators uh, are coming from India. No? That's the Tech Mahindra, Tata, Infosys. In Europe, no, basically there are many smaller SIs, no, and testing companies, and often working in fairly local basis, no. But if they would be investing on this organization, then they would have a good market share in the foreseeable future, no. And hopefully that also is also that policy uh, would be reflected also by our policymakers and inject, no, investments and R&D budgets into our local providers, no, for us Philippines, no, to have a shot at gaining some piece of the pie of Open RAN. So there's a study here where in services, no, by 2026 it's expected that Open RAN will account for a substantial portion of total 5G SI market globally. And they're expecting this to be 13.3 billion in total segment, worth of 27.7 billion. So a huge chunk of Open RAN would be in the service market, no? For development, this encompasses activities, no, from pure research projects in universities and corporate labs, to incubators that facilitate the commercialization of these findings to startup, no? As well as standards organization and open source collaboration. So this is a basically a starting point, no, for labs that exchange and verify technology, which in turn, no, if they have produced something in development, would most likely have to pass through the services for integration testing. But on their own, development organizations and R&Ds and universities, no, most likely would have a need, no, for even a small scale end-to-end platform for testing, Open Run, if they would want to develop, no, because um, it's hard to just develop a specific module, no, not realizing the effect, no, on other components, especially big components, no, in radio access network, if you don't have that uh, equipment or even emulations, no, equipment to emulate the specific RAN modules. So what we're seeing at is, if you want to develop, you would most likely need, no, in your facility some interoperability equipments, no, and you could start. That basically would be your starting point to develop various products for Open RAN. So for summary here, no, in recent studies, no, at least we're basing this on European studies, European comparison. They have identified 13 major Open RAN players in Europe, and there are 57 non-European players. And this is distributed mainly in Asia and US, or North America. Many European players are at an early stage of development, and this basically opens up their their government and their funders, no? That if they want a huge chunk of Open RAN market share, they would have to decide, or maybe they could do both, no? To inject R&D funds, or maybe tax breaks, no, on startups, or even the current players that they have, no, they might still need support for those policies, no, that could help them improve on developing, no, or and gaining market share in Open RAN. So next is future estimates on how it's viewed, no, on Open RAN market share. This is the estimated value chain, no, by next year, where they're saying that chips and components would be around 11%, cloud is 18%. So most major cloud providers already are looking at this chunk that they're gonna be most likely deployed on them, because if again you want a cloud deployment and most likely gonna be using third-party cloud, uh, I think this already goes to the North American companies. No? But all is not lost. No? RAN hardware, which is distributed across the globe, no, it still amounts to 24%. Services actually the biggest chunk here, no? Which I would say anyone could actually play at, with systems integration, testing, and managed service. No? So that's a huge chunk in the value chain of Open. That's 38%. If you want or us, no, let's say in the Philippines, no, wants to start developing RAN software, I think this would be a good entry point for us, services and RAN software. It's 9%, no, it's still big, no. Thing with software, it's I would say across all of these, no, aside from services, this is one of the least investment needed, no, to enter into Open RAN value chain. There's also development, but as of now, no, it's tagged as not available yet. No data yet for what kind of chunk, no, it's gonna be part in the value chain. No? But development, it would go hand in hand with how do you develop services, how do you develop chips, how do you optimize it, how do you develop software. No? So I think it's distributed across multiple value chain modules too. Hence, it's tagged as NA. Now, for revenues, I think we're still on track, no? So, the 2023 was, uh, there's just a very small error, no? So, but they were on track on predicting that they would have around 10 billion euro revenue for 2023, at least for components, no? But let's see if they're gonna sustain this trend, no, for 2024, 2025, and 2026. But if you could just imagine that the amount, no? If we're gonna base it on maybe 12 billion euro for 2023, we're gonna have more than double, no, by 2026. No? So that's in 3 years, no? So times two and a half, no? Roughly. So there is huge revenue to be generated in Open RAN because there's again a lot of the telcos currently operation would want to shift, no, to 5G, 6G. No? There are some telcos who are operating in 5G yet, but they would want to operate with open, most likely in Open RAN at this point because again there are a lot of pros than cons in running Open RAN. So for the vendor distribution, we have this basically segmentation on where we see Europe. They have some companies that's operating on it, but it's as of now, no, it's still mainly North American market. I mean, they have the huge market for open and the North American organizations, no? But there is huge competition in Southeast Asia. Although I think Southeast Asia is a bit mistaken, no? Because Japan is not really part of Southeast Asia, and India, no? But I would say this is Asia in general. We got a large number of organization that is into open RAN space, no? Operating in Asia, no? So we're competing basically. Uh, we're in a good place, no, for competing in Open RAN. And one of the, I think, goals, no, for Asia Open RAN Academy is to develop individuals in the region to be able to understand, no, what is Open RAN and do specializations on various value chain modules in Open RAN and maybe concentrate there. They would be ready once they finish Asia Open RAN Academy to be operating, no, and developing, you know, for various Open RAN value chain modules. So what is for the course? Got a lot of readings here because again, this is not much of the much technical than compared to other courses in Asia Open RAN. So there's a lot of case studies like this one from Vodafone where they studied, no, in 2021 building Open RAN ecosystems in Europe. So what's the benefit for early adopters, no, for Open RAN? And this was from NEC, no, that they believe that if you are able, no, to learn and transition to Open RAN, they are predicting that in the total cost of ownership, no, modeling, now you could reduce 25% of the TCO's cost in 10 years, no, as compared to maintaining and operating a legacy RAN. So uh, they have much more, I would say, a conservative study, no, that if you deployed, no, in 2026, you would still have some savings, but not much, no, as compared to if you deploy it early on, according to NEC's modeling. So, for more detailed documentation on this study, no, it's also part of the reading for the course. We have here Moving to Open RAN. The time is now white paper from NEC. It's 16 pages long, not so technical then, but it's more of having, the decision makers uh, open up their minds that, yeah, well, you need to move to Open RAN if you want more cost savings in the future. There's also Open RAN ecosystem, gathering steam, basically um, doing a good hype, no, into what Open RAN is. But it's a bit lengthy, no? It's a 78 pages long white paper. But it's actually a good read, no? So again, that is Open RAN value chain course for Asia Open RAN Academy. Not too technical, a lot of readings and comparisons. But yeah, I think that is it, no? So we got here a summary of key learning points. Just to summarize our discussions this morning. Okay.